It's not that Darksiders is impossible to describe on its own terms. It's just that it's significantly easier to convey what Vigil Games' new action-adventure is by talking about all of the other games that it's very overtly borrowing from. While you'll certainly see elements of games like Portal and Panzer Dragoon in there, and the combat system feels very post-God of War, the most direct comparison is The Legend of Zelda. Darksiders creates a fresh, apocalyptic world where angels and demons are engaged in open conflict all over what used to be modern-day Earth, and then it sends you on an adventure that is structured very much like a game in Nintendo's popular action-adventure franchise. Initially, some folks might want to write Darksiders off as some kind of shameless clone, but it goes deeper than you'd expect. It's a lot of fun on its own merits, though it's also really interesting to see how it puts a spin on the different things it takes from other games. In Darksiders, you play as War, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, the horsemen are only supposed to be called into action to maintain the balance between heaven and hell. The game states that the apocalypse, the final battle to see who gets to control it all, will only take place once the kingdom of man, that's us, is strong enough to engage in battle. But somehow the balance is broken and the forces of heaven and hell clash on Earth a little too early. This, as you might expect, results in the extinction of mankind. It also results in War being called into action, but for some reason the other 3 horsemen aren't, and a lot of the blame for the battle gets laid at War's feet. As you stomp around the remains of Earth, you'll be on a mission to restore a bit of balance to the universe, but really it's a revenge tale that comes into focus as you get closer and closer to the truth. The story ends up being a slow burn that I thought really picked up near the end, once you really start seeing what happened to cause all this mess. It'll probably take most players somewhere between 15 and 20 hours to see the end of Darksiders, and the ending, I thought, was quite good. Okay, so the game isn't about saving some princess. All of the comparisons to The Legend of Zelda come in the way that the game is laid out, the items you're given, and to some extent, the way it handles. In some spots, it feels like Vigil carved out a space for its own ideas. In others, it feels like the developers sat down and said, what would be the edgy and dark version of this Zelda thing? Take your life meter, for example. Instead of heart containers, you're finding skulls! You'll find pieces of a skull that when you get 4 of them fuse together to add another skull to your life meter. The game quickly sets you up on a path to go from overworld areas to spots that more closely resemble the temples from the Zelda series. Here, the game switches from its combo-heavy combat to more puzzle-oriented gameplay. The puzzles usually tie into the items you collect, and one of the first items you acquire is essentially the boomerang from The Legend of Zelda. You can use it to stun enemies, but you can also use it to strike specific targets in a specific order. So if you want to light a faraway torch, you can target an existing fire source, then the torch you want to light. Also, there are bomb plants, some of which need to be lit in this way. Yep, bomb plants. The temples also have you pushing blocks and manipulating the world in different ways to proceed. All of this builds up to a boss fight that, again, feels like something Link would do. The bosses adhere to the rule of 3, and you'll almost always use the item you acquired in that area to take on the boss. Other items include the Abyssal Chain, which is really just a fancy way of saying hook shot, a portal gun that, much like the game Portal, lets you hop from one spot to the next, a horse that makes getting around the world a bit faster, and so on. One bit of reverent Zelda homage I could have done without, though, is a late-game quest that forces you to backtrack through most of the world to collect pieces of an item that you'll need before you can face the final confrontation. There are also some other late-game things that more directly reference things from the Zelda franchise, but I'll let you see that on your own time. Darksiders has a great thick look to it. War himself looks super tough, something you'd probably expect from one of the 4 horsemen. The environments maybe aren't dirty enough considering the whole post-apocalyptic setting, but there's a great variety to the areas that makes each new section of the game worth seeing. There are a lot of things in Darksiders that are worth seeing, in fact. While it's a bit bumpy in spots and the 360 version of the game suffers from some significant screen tearing issues, there are plenty of high-quality moments in the game. Is it derivative? Absolutely. It's totally shameless. But you know what? It's also done so well that this isn't really a bad thing.